this is a very important tool for practicality's sake. Okay. And another hard skill. So we go back to the hard skills that we can develop for experimental design is experimental control. And this is because our experimental design must ensure that the measurements or the data that we collect are reliable and valid to a certain extent. I say at a certain extent because we are limited, of course, by our resources and just dive deep, go to a certain depth of experimentation on a certain research question. So kung limited po tayo sa budget, hindi natin ma-afford yung mga sophisticated equipment. So we do like in-house developed methods. So we try to aim at least so that our measurements and our data are reliable and valid, and minimizing the errors or the bias in the experiments. So there are two metrics here: the reliability and the validity of the experiments. And reliability is the measure for reliability is found on the reproducibility of a certain analytical method implemented. So yung results ng experiments natin must be reproducible in order to be deemed reliable. So kung inulit ito ng iba pang grupo or ng iba pang estudyante the year after, doon mapuprove na reliable yung ating method or analytical technique na ginamit. And also the methods, the methodology should be valid. And how do we ensure that the methodology is valid? We use validated or standard methods. Let's say when we're doing meta-analysis, so ang standard method po dyan usually is what is called atomic absorption spectroscopy or AAS, or ICP, inductively coupled plasma spectroscopy. These are already sophisticated equipment, sophisticated instrumentation na pwede nating i-employ so that we know that these are valid, and whenever methods are valid, we know that they are reliable. So it comes hand in hand. So pag valid po yung methods natin, we know that it's reliable, but it's not the other way around. Parang hindi ibig sabihin na yung in-house developed method natin for metal analysis, just because it's reliable, nare-reproduce natin yung results, it means that it's valid. It doesn't follow. But whenever we use standard methods, we are sure that the results are reliable and valid as well. And another aspect of experimental control is that subjects must be randomized into treatment groups. Kasi nga po, we are trying to minimize the errors or the bias in our experiments. So dito na po pumapasok yung bias ng experimenter or bias ng methodology itself. When you're trying to do calibration from the lowest concentration to the highest concentration, in that manner, from lowest to high, you already introduce a bias on the actual measurement. So that's why randomization is important. Let's say we control our subjects or randomize our subjects into the treatment groups para po ma-minimize yung errors and bias. So, and of course, a control group must be maintained. Yung control group po is the group that did not receive any treatment or manipulation or control in the treatments. So ito yung untreated sample natin. So let me just come back to my example over here. Ayan po. So, sinasabi po nila dito na yung blocking of the plants were, dito pa rin po tayo sa eggshell example. They treated the plants with different concentrations of the chicken eggshells, but they randomized the blocking of the plants every day. Kasi nga po, yung effect ng sunlight might introduce a bias on the plants. Kasi nga po baka yung isang group ang mas naaarawan kaysa doon sa kapila. So we try to randomize the samples so that they receive an unbiased amount of let's say a certain confounding variable. Confounding variable na po ito kasi di naman nila tinalakay yung effect ng sunlight doon sa growth ng plants. It's just the amount of this active ingredient. So ganun po yung pag-carry out ng randomization, and pumapasok na din po dito yung randomized block approach ng mga experiments natin, where we try to randomize our subjects into treatment groups, and we discussed that thoroughly during the design of experiments webinar in the research university. I will send the link after the webinar here. So I want to stress again that control group must be maintained at all times, kasi ang ganda-ganda nung experimentation, pagdating sa defense, wala palang control. So that actually happened in my experience. So parang ang ganda-ganda nung discussion, but then nakita nung reviewer, examiner, wala kang control. So ulit tayo. So that's why it's really important that we devote an ample amount of time towards the development of a sound experimental design, kasi nga po we may suffer in the end.
And actually, matatawag ko si JP. Ang tawagan po namin ni JP because we've been friends for how long, JP? More than about 20 years.
I don't know, 20 years.
About 20 years. Anyways, matatawag ko siyang Dong. Anyways, force of habit. Pero singitan na natin to ng chikahan. Kasi po, importance of control experiments. Magkaiba po yan, may negative and positive control. Why is this very important? We have the tendency to not control things when the result is positive. Meaning, yung ini-expect natin na kukuha natin.
Mm-hmm.
But then, as researchers, let's make it a practice that when something is working out well, is that real? Kasi ang sinabi niya, yes. Ang sinabi niya po ni JP, nangyayari na ang ganda-ganda ng resulta mo, pero if you are not really able to establish or you establish the confidence that that is not a result of something that is interfering in your experiments, baka po ang mangyayari sa dulo ay mali pa yung resulta.
Mm-hmm.
At napakasakit pong mangyari yan sa dulo na ng thesis pagpatapos na kayo.
Mm-hmm. Isang taon na ang nangyari.
At ma-extend kayo.
Hindi ka gagraduate.
Yeah. Doon sa experience namin, parang okay, ang taas-taas ng concentration na nakuha nila. Yung pala, yung temperature ng hot plate, hindi equal. So mas mataas yung temperature dun sa likod. So those are unforeseen, confounding variables na tinatawag. Kaya we really have to...
I also had a recent experience there. Ang nangyari was I took over a project and I couldn't reproduce the result. So I had to do things, I had to rerun the experiment 3 times and I kept getting the same outcome. And then, yung taong gumawa po ng experiment, medyo wala na siya dun sa group namin. So when we did some further digging from like of what they did 3 or 4 years ago, it turns out magkaiba yung mga hot plate na ginamit,
Yeah.
magkaiba yung mga glassware na ginamit, like certain things that were not documented and variables that could really impact the outcome. Dong, sagutin ko lang itong isang tanong dito. Sir Zestoni, meron po kaming webinar from the Institute of Statistics in UP. They actually came up, kay Professor Lara, it's about experimental design. She discussed CRD and RCBD.
Yeah.
Puntahan niyo po yun doon.
Yeah, the statistical treatment of
Yeah.
data. So, ayun po, very detailed po yung discussion ni Ma'am Lara from that webinar. So you can just search that from our website. Okay.